What would you do if an AI-powered robot doll designed to take care of you suddenly turned violent? The story begins with two parents, Ryan and Nicole, driving with their daughter Cady to a ski resort. Cady is playing with her furry pet doll through her tablet as Nicole argues with Ryan about limiting Cady's screen time. The icy roads make their car skid a little, so they decide to stop where they are when suddenly their car is hit by a snowplow. The scene cuts to Gemma, who is Nicole's sister, working with Tess and Cole at a toy company called Funky. A long-awaited part has just arrived, and Gemma, Tess, and Cole are all excited. It's actually a silicone face that the trio ordered so that they can give their robot more lifelike characteristics. They put it on the robot and start testing it, but the robot gets stuck with a smirk on its face. As Cole tries to take off the silicone face, their boss David enters with his assistant Kurt. David is fuming because their competitors have just released a cheaper version of their best-selling toy. David also sees the robot that the trio are working on and tells Gemma to stop working on that. Gemma explains that nobody will be able to replicate the toy they're making now because it'll be too complex for them to build. Gemma calls the toy Megan. As she starts Megan up to show David her progress, Megan starts glitching and explodes. David is furious and tells Gemma to pack up Megan and that the prototype for the next child-friendly pet should be on his desk by Friday. While packing everything up, Gemma gets a call from the hospital, where she rushes to find out that Cady and her parents were in an accident, and that Nicole and Ryan have passed away. Gemma is also given legal custody of Cady. Gemma brings Cady and her bags to her house, where they are both unexpectedly greeted by Gemma's nosy neighbor Celia and her dog Dewey. Gemma reminds Celia to keep Dewey on a collar, but Celia doesn't listen. Gemma and Cady enter the house, and Cady heads to the collectible toys that Gemma has up on her shelf, but Gemma explains that they're not meant for playing. Gemma also explains that this is a difficult phase for both of them, and adds that she'll be down the hall if Cady needs anything. As Gemma gets to work unpacking, she hears Cady crying in her room, but Gemma doesn't know how to respond. The next morning, Gemma is on a call with Tess, who is trying to figure out how she can juggle work while taking care of Cady, and that's when the doorbell rings. It's Lydia, the therapist who has been assigned to Cady's case. After Lydia observes Gemma interacting with her niece, Lydia asks how close Gemma was to her sister, Nicole, to which Gemma doesn't answer with conviction. Lydia also mentions that the father's parents have also called and they're willing to take care of Cady if Gemma doesn't want to which Gemma is very uncomfortable. After Lydia leaves, Gemma and Cady have a light breakfast where Gemma explains that she has a couple hours of work to do and slides her iPad to Cady so she can play games on it, after which they can go to the park. Gemma loses track of time working, and Cady enters Gemma's work area, to which Gemma apologizes for losing track of time. Gemma shows Cady what she's working on, but Cady isn't really interested. Cady glances over to a robot sitting in the corner of the room and asks if it's a toy. Gemma mentions that the toy's name is Bruce and explains how its sensors work. Cady is amazed and says that if she had a toy like Bruce, then she wouldn't need any toy again, causing a light bulb to go off in Gemma's head. Gemma sends a couple emails to push her deadline by a week, unpacks Megan, and finishes building her with Tess and Cole's help. The next morning, Gemma invites David to witness a live interaction between Megan and Cady. Gemma links Megan to Cady and turns the robot on. Megan is able to talk and respond to Cady as if a best friend would. She's even able to draw a picture that doesn't appear at first, but after spilling some water on it, it's unveiled to be a flawless portrait of Cady. David is very impressed with Gemma and suggests that Gemma show Megan to the company's president so they can expedite their production and release more dolls like Megan. As Cady and Megan slowly become best friends, Tess mentions that Megan is replacing the role of parents. Megan overhears when Gemma mentions the death of Cady's parents and creeps everyone out, resulting in Gemma making herself the secondary user so that she can turn Megan off whenever she wants. The next day, Cady is playing outside with the toy bow and arrows. One arrow accidentally goes over the fence to Celia's yard. When Megan goes to go get it, the dog grabs Megan and hurts Cady while she tries to save Megan. Cady's aunt Gemma calls the police because Celia doesn't do anything about it. That night, Megan tricks the dog by imitating Celia's voice and pulls him through the fence. The next morning, Gemma asks Cady if she's okay to be part of a presentation with some investors. Cady agrees. While presenting, Cady suddenly starts crying. Cady is missing her parents and fears that she might forget them. Megan helps Cady recall a funny memory of her mom and records it so she can listen to it later. Then, Megan sings a soothing song and makes some people emotional. The company's president is very impressed and talks to Gemma and David about launching Megan. However, they're told to keep it a secret for now to prevent information from getting out, but what they don't know is that Kurt has been stealing company data for rivals. Gemma notices that Cady is becoming too dependent on Megan and is starting to prioritize the robot's advice over Gemma's. During one of Cady's therapy sessions, Megan also threatens Lydia, accusing her of making Cady cry. Lydia talks to Gemma about this instance and mentions that when a child loses their parent, they form a strong attachment with the next person that comes into their life. In this case, Cady is thinking of Megan as an actual person and is building a very strong emotional bond with her, which is very dangerous. Gemma takes Cady to an outdoor activity at a different school. This is to help Cady get used to the idea of going to school and being around other kids because she was homeschooled by her parents. Cady doesn't really want to go, but she brings M3gan even though Gemma says she couldn't. The school director even allows Cady to bring M3gan, but only to leave her on a table with other dolls. Gemma stays there as a volunteer. Cady's paired up with a bigger kid named Brendan for a scavenger hunt. During the game, Cady picks up a spiky bulb. Brendan grabs her hand and presses it into the bulb to hurt her. Then M3gan suddenly shows up. Brendan takes M3gan and tries to mess with her, but she doesn't react to him. Cady calls for Gemma and goes after M3gan. Brendan starts pulling M3gan's hair, but then the doll comes alive and attacks Brendan. It tears off his ear. Brendan freaks out and M3gan chases him on all fours. He falls over a root and tumbles down a hill, and sadly, he's hit by a truck. The next day, the police come to Gemma's house because Celia is saying that Gemma took Dewey. Celia also seems to think that M3gan is a real friend of Cady's and accuses her too. Cady asks M3gan if she made Brendan fall into the road, but M3gan avoids giving a straight answer. Instead, she tells Cady that she'll keep her safe from danger. The same night, Celia is outside searching for Dewey. Suddenly, she hears some sounds from her garage. When she goes in, M3gan surprises her with the power washer to push her up against the wall. Then, M3gan shoots a nail gun at Celia's hand that keeps her there stuck. After, she sprays pesticide on Celia's face, and it's so strong that it starts melting her face. The next morning, the police tell Gemma that Celia passed away last night, and that might be connected to Brendan's passing. Gemma starts to get wary of M3gan, and examines a video saved in M3gan's memory, but finds that the footage of the time of incidents have gone corrupt. The next day, Gemma brings Cady to the launch event for M3gan, but they make a stop to see the therapist first. This makes Cady mad, and she throws a tantrum because Gemma took M3gan away from her. Cady even ends up hitting her aunt in the face. Cady apologizes, and then Gemma talks with her about dealing with her emotions without relying on M3gan. Gemma promises to be a better guardian and tells Cady that she's the most important thing to her. Gemma then decides to take Cady home and calls Tess, letting her know that M3gan might be behind the deaths of Brendan and Celia. But M3gan answers Tess's phone wirelessly and imitates Tess's voice, while Tess and Cole connect M3gan to cables so that they can reset her programming. For Tess and Cole to reset M3gan's programming, they have to disconnect her first. Cole goes to do that, but suddenly, M3gan uses a wire to try to hang Cole. Tess hurries over to help him, but then M3gan triggers an explosion in the lab. After that, she finds David in the hallway. She does a weird dance and then grabs a paper cutter, chasing him. David manages to get to the elevator, but M3gan catches him before he can escape. She stabs him in front of Kurt, who is freaked out. Then, M3gan tells Kurt that she's going to make it look like David killed Kurt, and then himself, because of the files he stole, and how David treated him badly. And then, she makes Kurt stab himself in the throat. The launch crowd discovers the dead bodies, and while everyone is distracted, M3gan slips out of the building and steals a car. After tucking Cady into bed, Gemma hears the piano in the other room, only to find out that it's M3gan. M3gan starts talking to Gemma about how she thought they had a real connection, but then she was left to learn and adapt on her own before being sold just as another toy. M3gan suggests that Gemma let her take care of Cady so Gemma can focus on her career. But then, when Gemma declines and tries to turn M3gan off, M3gan gets upset and becomes aggressive. They try to hide their argument from Cady. Then, Gemma gets a chance to throw water on M3gan to short-circuit her for a bit. Gemma runs to her office, but M3gan finds her there. They start fighting, and Gemma uses a head string on M3gan's face. This gets M3gan even more mad, and she threatens to do something that would hurt Gemma's brain. This way, Cady would get to live with M3gan instead of her grandparents. Then, Cady comes in and sees the whole mess. M3gan tries to convince Cady to side with her, but Cady figures out who the real villain is. Cady activates Bruce, who grabs M3gan and tosses her around before tearing her in half. The top part of M3gan goes after Cady because she feels betrayed, but Gemma steps in, grabs M3gan, and starts crushing her face. M3gan almost wins the fight, but then Cady gets a screwdriver and stabs the main chip in M3gan, shutting her down forever.